Hello and welcome everyone to the MAST Hybrid Interfacing Academy kickoff event, which is our workshop, the MAST Education and Policy Workshop, so-called. We have 2 hours or a little less left to exchange positions, define the actual needs, intentions, and capacities, both among our, institutions, organizations that we represent, or those that we want to address, the policies that we want to influence, and the suggestions or the downright demands we want to place toward those in positions of decision-making, of probably also power in different forms and kinds, not least the financing as policy goes. But let's not forget, this is also an educational workshop, as the MAST, the Master Module in Art, Science and Technology, was primarily a project that developed a master level study module. I'm Peter Purk, the facilitator of this workshop. Today, I am the MAST project lead or coordinator, representing the University of Nova Gorica School of Arts in Slovenia, among other partners with whom we have been now for over 2 years successfully collaborating in the MAST project. Some of them are here present, but most of them not. They're there in spirit, and they will be presenting their parts and acting out their roles in the following 2 days of the Hybrid Interfacing Academy. I might draw your attention again to the rich program of this series of events, workshops with industry, challenge labs, simulations, showcases, educational, methodological reflection workshops, and of course, last but not least, the tomorrow's symposium at 5 p.m. streamed, just like the present workshop is being streamed, but tomorrow with really cutting-edge speakers, Vivian Hoffman, the Secretary General of Innovation of the Deputy Secretary General of Innovation at the European Commission, Michaela Magash, used to be called Innovation Catalyst and the Innovator of the Year not long ago, and Marko Pelhan, the award-winning activist, professor and entrepreneur in the realm of intermedia arts. The rest of MAST project as such in our context will be slowly uncovered through layers. But first of all, I want to greet everyone present, and more than this, we are being streamed live on Facebook and YouTube. So I'm also greeting our audiences, and please let us know whether you have any comments or suggestions or questions along our public workshop activities today. With this, I'm also inviting a broader public to not only inspire, but downright influence what we say and what we eventually sign off as the recommendations or the conclusions of our workshop. Among the participants, I want to greet Peter Fries from Future Media, Social Network, Innovation, Science, Technology, Arts,
Hello.
Media Policy, European Commission. Hello, Peter.
Hello.
DG Connect, Brussels, Belgium, where this project was also supported from. Sanja M. Bojanic, University of Rijeka, Academy of Applied Arts, Professor and Vice Dean, Executive Director of the Center for Advanced Studies in Croatia, with whom I am happy to be collaborating on their setting up of an artistic PhD aimed at interdisciplinary matters as well. Hello, Sanja. Sanja is hiding behind the CAS logo, but I could see her. Okay. By the way, you are only being visible in the wide world of the social networks if you have your camera on. If not, the social networks don't want to see you. So yeah, please keep your camera on. You will each have your little 2 to 3 minutes podium moments soon to just introduce yourself, and as I said, state your maybe positions that are relevant for this workshop soon after I just list the names, so you don't need to list your own affiliations. Again, Christophe de Jager, Director of Gluon at Beaux-Arts, Program Manager at Beaux-Arts Art and Research in Brussels, Belgium. Our Director at the Higher Education Directorate at the Ministry of Education, Science and Sport of Slovenia, Jana Javornik, couldn't make it, but she's replaced by Darinka Vrečko. Hello, Darinka, and thank you for taking your time. A very high level and relevant figure in policymaking in the matters of STEAM and other similar realms. Olivera Sretenovic from the University of the Arts in Belgrade couldn't make it due to a force majeure, but I am happy then to say hello to Robert Manchin. Robert, hi, the President of Culture Action Europe, and also faithful and valuable partner in the MAST project. You can also see the name of Klemen Shirok, that was not announced, but Klemen Shirok is our external quality assurance expert, and he's showing his camera right now. He's not spying on us, but he's being a really precious help and a very strong reflective force to the MAST project. So Klemen, whenever you have an idea and an even sharper question, very welcome. And not to forget, Sasho Sedlacek, the Vice Dean for Research and Development at the Academy of Fine Arts, the Academy of Arts of the University of Ljubljana, Slovenia. Sasho, with his tactical and activist slant to the art making and art teaching. I think, Sasho, you will be a great asset today. Thank you for coming. And we also have Jernej Čuček-Gerbec here, my colleague at the University of Nova Gorica, who will be taking notes, basically so that we don't need to be too busy with the minutes. However, the minutes, as you know, are being transparently shared. You got the link per email in advance, and the link is again in the chat. If you want, just click on it and you can access the shared Google Doc, and we can co-edit the minutes, of course, in terms of making statements and making sure that the phrases are right and they hit the spot. I'm sure that this collaborative modus is the right one. So much for me. Have I, gosh, forgotten anyone? No, at least for those on the cameras. I have kindly asked you in advance kind of to prepare your little inputs on not that much who you are. Well, of course, it's important whom you represent, but to perhaps identify the needs or the, well, both institutional and systemic assets that are to enter this workshop situation that we have at present. And of course, clarify your initial positions, maybe even the capacities or the outreach that your participation in this workshop or your representation can take. So I would maybe ask Peter to set the stage in a way. You are representing media policy realm with the European Commission that has decided to support such kind of project modules in education. So Peter, please.
Yeah, hello, good morning to everybody. Can you hear me? This is Peter Fries from the European Commission in Brussels. I'm happy to see familiar faces, Christoph, and of course you, Peter. I'm happy to get to know the other participants of the workshop, and of course looking forward to interesting questions from the audience. So I'm working at the European Commission, and together with my colleagues, we were supporting the MAST project, and I think we are quite pleased with the results, and definitely I'm looking forward also what we're discussing during the workshop, but we as a policymaker can take home. What we do, we have a very interesting initiative at DG Connect, so that's the Ministry of the European Commission working on communication networks and content linked to the internet and social media. We have an initiative called STARTS, Science, Technology, Arts, where we try to support the matchmaking and collaborative projects integrating various disciplines. And I think, of course, the MAST project enters perfectly in this. We have 5 pillars where we have, for example, residencies, lighthouse projects. We have an interesting one which is called the Starts Academy, and I guess Christoph is going to say a few words on that. And now we are also driving more towards a regional support. I think we all are a little bit in post-pre-COVID epoch. We are now facing, I guess, in many regions a second wave. And what we learned already from the first wave was really the importance of art, right, or artistic thinking. And of course, as a cultural offer, as many were at home. So we realized that art for the social well-being, but also maybe to stimulate finding new solution is very important. This become really, I think, evident. We are also discussing that if you think how cultural exchange and cultural events are going to happen in the future, there has certainly been a change towards more hybrid forms. And I think this also would need to reflect on the present and future way we train and educate and inspire artists to continue their life after education or after any kind of school. And I guess what I learned also from the colleagues that your project tried precisely to work on that. So actually you are finishing at the right moment of time, saying what we have learned. You were still, MAST was touched by COVID. What have you learned, and which now really we can transform into a curricula. And I think certainly now we are very much into hybrid education. So I guess there's a lot of input which can now be transformed in the coming weeks and months. What I would say is that for me personally, a change in the arts system, the art education is not easy because there are many traditions and views, and I think these traditions make also a part of the cultural heritage. And of course there are also tastes. Many people don't like the digital art and do not aspire to it. So I think what is interesting also for the art system, in my perspective, is the way to maintain the traditions and I would say even the beliefs, but to transform it in a way it's in our society, which means there's a lot of digital, there's a lot of hybridity, there are new technologies entering the fields. I guess for the time being AI is the most prominent one. So how this can be integrated and how then of course young artists or any artist can be prepared to get his inspiration. I would say also his living in this new field of hybridity between online, offline and tradition and of course our modernity right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. Very nice. Basically, semantics that are slowly building a little semantic cloud, a little matrix within which we will be moving. And I'm sure that Sanja Bojanic will add to this semantic cloud some quite relevant concepts, not only theoretically, even if she's a very strong theoretician, but also pragmatically, because she's, as I mentioned, on the top of building a artistic PhD precisely in this theme or interdisciplinary manner. Sanja, please.
Good morning to everybody. I'm happy to join the crowd. And as Peter already said, I'm somehow in charge of building up a doctoral program at the University of Rijeka. University of Rijeka is a young university. And we have an Academy of Applied Arts that has been collaborating on institutional level with Peter and his previous efforts in strengthening and creating new approaches to artistic practices and theories, and it was quite difficult time, institutionally speaking, with some strong individuals. And what I'm facing at the moment is still this difficulty to measure institutional impact, formal structural efforts, and on the other side, artists, practitioners who are at some point disseminated at this moment. We've had this experience of European Capital of Culture here in Rijeka, struck by the COVID, by the lack of crisis management as well, and many other things, kind of a natural disaster, which brought us to the point to reshuffle all this and to check once again what is it that we are doing, whom we are addressing all this, why we are doing all this, not only on the level of creators and artists, but generally. I just finished a small project on diversity politics in creative and cultural industries, covering this region. And we made several publications, workshops, etc., etc. And why am I saying all this? I'm a bit frustrated because whatever I do and whomever I address my concerns or institutional concerns, I don't want to sound either politically correct or to do it like, okay, let's tick a box and move on. So if I've done things for blind people or for audio despaired persons or people that have special needs, especially again in arts and artistic practices, I want to leave a trace, and this is difficult. It's not only show on a video or put on an installation and just put it in a project proposal and sound beautifully. People generally are let's say confused, if not something more. And what the arts are, what is the role of arts in all this? What is it that we can get from artistic practices? And how are we going to help every one of us with all our disparments? This is my concern now. And together now, linking to what Peter said about my institutional effort, building up this doctoral program on arts, society, and science, firstly here in Rijeka, and then, of course, in the region and further on. My intention is to to focus specifically on this participatory moment of arts. And when we discuss hybridity, when we discuss transhumanism in all forms, etc., where is the human in all this? What is it? Where is our perception? Where are our senses? I'm looking now the screen. I have multiple screens like a fly with fly's eye, and I'm okay with some of you because I know you, but generally speaking, I'm depressed. I don't have smell, I don't have touch, and this kind of sensitivity I'm expecting to, well, working together with you to reach in not in a displaced form, but how we are going to think about all this, how we are going to, now I'm Deleuzian, but then how we are going to step above all this that is now distressing us. Because I personally, as I said, it's a depressive and distressing situation with all possibilities that we have. And I'm a positive person. What arts can do in all this? And I'm sorry if if I sounded pessimistic. It's not my intention.
Fine, Sanya, thank you. We said like positions. It might be emotional information is information just as well. Data that we have to deal with, especially AI, is said to know best, if not well, how to deal with emotional data. But we are still on the safe side, I think, of machine learning. Or even replacing machines with because they work we don't need to work, but we can still forge some nice cryptocurrencies, and this is the current project of Sasha Sedlacek in his artistic practice. But here, Sasha, I have invited you as the the vice dean for R&D of the Slovenian biggest main central art academy, and also as a technical media arts practitioner. Still, just to clarify why, Croatia, Slovenia, okay, Belgrade's not here. I have attempted to make a little kind of a macro regional Southeast European, Central European focus, just to state the case, because I think this is the place and the time where the cracks are showing the most, and where progress is maybe even needed the most in the wider political sense. However, there should have been Madeira, Portugal represented. University of Madeira was a part of this consortium, but the colleague Gonzalo couldn't make it. But still, Sasha, maybe just your short position, anything you throw in will be valuable, as you know, even though you're completely outside of the MAST project. Please. Sound? We can't hear you, Sasha.
Okay, now you hear me, right? Okay, great. Okay, maybe just at the start, I will just maybe introduce myself a bit so that you know what do I bring to the table. So like you mentioned, I'm first of all, let's say art practitioner. So for the last 20 years, I've been working mostly as a multimedia artist, turning upside down some scientific, legal, technological facts, and often resulting in some sort of practical and hopefully humorous works. But also for the last 5 or 6 years, I've been enrolled in an educational institution. I'm working as a teacher at the Academy of Fine Arts in Ljubljana at the Department of Video and New Media. But also for the last 2-3 years, I've been vice dean for research and development, and my main task here was the establishment of PhD study at University of Ljubljana, and because this was already mentioned here by Bojana. And we also met last year in Rijeka when I was there visiting the academy. And we have managed to put this, our form into accreditation. So we just finished before the Corona crisis, our application. So, I mean, this was really a long process because I didn't started it. I just came in some, let's say, in the middle of it, and we successfully filled it, and now we are waiting for higher authorities to let's say, to process this.
I'm sorry, Sasha, excuse me
Yeah.
for interrupting you, but does this doctoral program have elements of art, science, technology, or any interdisciplinary practice that would?
Well, it's called interdisciplinary doctoral study art, and it involves every institution in the University of Ljubljana that has some sort of art in it. So we are talking about art, design, music, theater, radio, film, television, landscape architecture, textile and fashion design. So yes, it's very interdisciplinary, and yes, it has this potentiality of being in between arts. I mean, it's trying to position arts in correlation with other sciences like natural and social sciences. So yeah, and we are also trying to get funds from this, trying to establish the research in this field. So I don't know if that fits in, but yeah, this is some, I don't know, let's say 3 fields that I'm maybe like I can bring to this table here today.
Okay, thank you. Let me remind you that you can share anything into the chat or into the minutes document. I'm trying to minute just the key statements or some phrases that you are throwing into this interesting mix, and we will try to make sense of them later on. Maybe to go on with Christophe, representing still, you know, Beaux-Arts as a big public art disseminating and producing institution, Gluon, which is, as far as I can understand, like an NGO-ish education, interdisciplinary, but still art-based, art-focused location, and you're still in Brussels, close to the policy-making influence. What would be your positions, Christophe?
First of all, thank you, Peter, for inviting me. I'm very happy to be able to contribute. So I indeed work for a big institution, and I think when we talk about the challenges we are confronted with, we indeed need institutional impact. So it's always interesting to try to convince bigger institutions to change the way they work. And there was the State of the Union by the President of the European Union, Ursula von der Leyen, where she was saying that we need again a new Bauhaus model. I find this very interesting. Bauhaus was a place where artists, designers, architects, but also policymakers came together. A place where they were not only working with arts, but also had the connection with the industry. People had to learn how machines work, and this had an impact on style and form. So I think that this is really somewhere where we have to think about Bauhaus philosophies, also with the Center for Fine Arts in Brussels. Of course, we cannot exaggerate this. There have been many different Bauhauses, again, in the 70s and the 80s in Europe. I'm thinking about Ars Electronica as a festival. I'm thinking about the ZKM in Karlsruhe. I'm thinking about Waag Society. These were really institutions that have been working in the Bauhaus style. So the seeds are there for big institutional changes already in Europe, but we have to build further upon them. And that is what we also do with the Center for Fine Arts. So it's a transversal cultural place where you have people specialized in arts, opera, literature, design. So the first thing we had to do was to accentuate with all my colleagues the importance of also linking with technology, but also linking with education. And this is something that is not easy, but it's an interesting challenge, because as a big cultural institution, you work in a big city, you work in an ecosystem of schools, of sociocultural institutions, and you have to collaborate on a program together to get this Bauhaus thinking in the city. It's not only one institution that can do it, you need many, many different players helping in one program. And I think therefore, the policymakers on the European level, but also on the national level, or even the level of the city, have the responsibility to think into the form of transversal policies. So they have a minister of innovation, work, or ecology, or any other discipline have to work together. And they have to launch large-scale projects that make people work together in a country or in a city. So I think this is really important, transversal policies and collaborations between different policymakers. I also think that we should not only think in Bauhaus models. In the situation of Brussels, there is a big problem of vulnerable people. More than 60% of the people live behind the poverty line. They don't have any of the opportunities that lots of the autochtone people in Belgium have. And this is something that we have to take into account. There's a whole generation of young people that we can help by bringing new digital skills or other skills to them. I also think that the biggest opportunity today in Belgium, at least, or in Brussels, is extracurricular. The schools really are in a difficult situation, or now even more with the COVID, but they have to give the basic education to people. And I think as cultural institutions or ecosystems, we can create extracurricular programs that make young people interested in art, science, and technology already from a young age. And we have the technology for that, the infrastructure, the expertise, and the networks. And to conclude, as Peter Vries said, who is doing a lot for STARTS projects, that's an European program, Science, Technology, and Arts, that believes that the creativity of artists can contribute to innovation in the industry. I think this new pillar that is still in process within the European Union is a big opportunity to create such a sustainable extracurricular program. And I'm very happy that Peter and his colleagues are supporting this on a big European scale. This is really very interesting.
Thank you, Christoph. Very valuable mentioning of the non-formal education sector. Well, with this, I think MAST broke through quite, because we had 3 NGOs and 3 universities, and the NGO positions and the NGOs that do a lot of non-formal education of this kind on several levels and layers had a lot to say here. And I can at least testify from the position of the University of Novgorod here with my colleague Yerney, who is also taking my notes. We are co-establishing here, co-founding so-called X Center, the Center of Creative Practices, that will do exactly this, and where the academy or the university is merely a partner, but a strong partner that will, co-design its programs, bring and, blend the higher education level programs with the secondary education level programs. Here we are also partnering with Kersnikova Institute that is hosting the MAST showcase and is a MAST partner, with 3 other projects that are basically much better funded or stronger in terms of funding than the present MAST. There's like there's almost 10 million euro in the pipeline to set these things up, and we are highly optimistic. But then we can see on the ground how tough it is, to collaborate with municipalities, especially with the companies that are here regionally, gradually coming closer to this and trying to and recognizing that they must proactively support and contribute to this, not just sponsor, but just proactively support, bringing their technologies, becoming mentors in these processes and so on. So it's NGOs, the public sector, the university level, the schools, and then the industry. And this all should be supported by policy, which in Slovenia, and this is a little, glove thrown towards the ministry, Ms. Vrečko. In Slovenia, in Europe, we don't feel this is supported enough, even though a lot is being done. But before Darinka, I would go over to you. I will give the word, because we promised to show some students' perspectives, but then again, with such participation, and we have a lot of students involved in other events of the MAST Hybrid Interfacing Academy, I will now roll out a video, which is less than 2 minutes, which is a video that came out as a position by one of the students that was exposed, that took part in the MAST workshops last year. And this is the way he saw, and this is the way he remixed the archive materials. We shot a lot of student testimonials, mentor testimonials, so on. So you will see 1 minute and 40 seconds now of what he thought is his reflection of the MAST project. And then we go over to you, Ms. Prečko. So I will just share my screen and yeah, enjoy. Sorry, this was the wrong one, which was prepared. This is the right one. Go again.
Biology or physics or architecture or engineering, and how they all combine themselves to come out with a beautiful art.
Sorry, we're having some technical difficulties. Now I hope you can see my screen shared. It's gonna just take 1 minute and 40 seconds. Sorry for the inconvenience.
Biology or physics or architecture or engineering, and how they all combine themselves to come out with a beautiful art.
MAST, around a master's program in art, science, and technology, which we're developing through a Creative Europe grant. And the goal of this is to say, how can we design digital media modules that can be used in schools around Europe that try to tie the design and production of new technologies and services to social European values, things like strong and empowered labor, solidarity, social equality, etc. And perhaps even use those technologies to reinforce and better those values in society. And so part of this, the idea of developing these modules is to build technologies and products that kind of reinforce the best elements of our society rather than undercut them.
Okay, sorry for the technical inconvenience. I hope you got that. I will also share the link. The link is in the minutes already to this original video. If you want to see it, I will share the link again here in the chat line. Otherwise, this link is featured in the MAST Vimeo channel, in the MAST Vimeo showcase. That is a part of the official MAST website for anyone that is following. So, Darinka, could you maybe not only respond to what was said, but maybe give us your position, anything we might not know but is happening on policy level, not only in Slovenia, of course. I know you have a good overview also on the European parquet. Darinka, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity to join this workshop. By this, I had the opportunity to learn about your project, which I didn't know before. And I'm really looking forward today to hear your ideas, suggestions, plans, and see how the policy can support them. Maybe with my short introduction to what the ministry did in last decade and more, will prove you wrong, Peter. Namely, that we do support extensively projects like yours in Slovenia. We started with when we got the opportunity to use the cohesion and structural funds. We started in the period, in the programming period 2007-13 already, with support for innovative student projects. If you are familiar with the Demola projects, these Slovenian projects are quite similar to the Demola projects. So we support groups of students who work with pedagogical and mentors from companies on real-time problems which the companies encounter in their everyday functioning and try to solve them. And we pretty much soon realized that the groups of students should be composed of students from different disciplines if we want to really if they really want to be up to the challenge of real-time projects, solving the real-time problems. And we succeeded. I must say that with support for interdisciplinary groups of students, this was one of the added value that students, especially students, but also the academics, appreciated most with these projects. Then in the programming period 2014-20, we extended this kind of projects to projects solving the problems of local communities, municipalities, working together with NGOs and so on, not just business sector. And there again, we criteria that we introduced demanded the projects to be composed of interdisciplinary groups of students. We are hoping to continue with this kind of projects also in the next programming period, hopefully getting money from the European Social Fund again. We would like to extend those projects to include also short working placements, because we see that this is also a very important component of innovation and something that is lacking in Slovenia still. So we are also hoping to introduce some pilot projects that would look into the possibilities of longer working placements and internships within study programs. What we will also support within the cohesion policy is, for the first time, we would like to support a form of lifelong learning programs, training programs. In Slovenia, these are programs that last up to 1 year, having 60 ECTS at the most, something like similar to your module. And these lifelong learning programs are supposed to be co-financed from the European Regional Fund and supporting the priorities of Slovenian smart specialization strategy. We realize, namely, that only about 10% of current lifelong learning programs that are offered by Slovenian higher education institutions are in the area of STEM disciplines. So we would like to change this, and we are hoping to get more interdisciplinary and more STEM discipline programs, training programs in the future. At the same time, we also invest funds from the national budget especially into the development of study programs and interdisciplinary study programs. We changed the system of financing of Slovenian higher education, and in 2017 we introduced 4-year contracts negotiated between the Ministry and higher education institutions. And we introduced, with this change of financing system, the so-called development pillar financing pillar. It is up to 3% of all national funds that we invest into the pedagogical part of higher education. But nevertheless, these are quite important funds. And in the period up to 2020, we supported the development of study programs. So we kindly expected innovative projects like yours to be proposed by higher education institutions, and then they could get funds for it. In the period from 2001 to 2021 up to 2024, we are giving money also to not just to institutional development priorities like in the current period, but also to the projects that have what we call wider social or systemic impact. And in that category, there is one priority that we want to support, and that is the promotion of not only STEM but STEAM, also arts study programs. So we are hoping to get we got first proposals already. Now we are in the middle of the negotiation process, and we are hoping to be able to support also some innovative proposals in this area. So you will see that through our basically financial means, but also some legislative changes when they are needed, we try to support developments that are going on into higher education sector and sometimes stimulate them if we don't see any progress in certain areas. And we think that with that kind of support in the past programming periods, we gave about 1/3 of all cohesion and structural funds to this kind of projects. We believe that we can really make changes, and we saw this with student projects that are now going on for more than 10 years. You can really make a difference, and we would be glad to continue along these lines if there will be proposals from the higher education sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Darinka, very much. Just to clarify, maybe there was some data missing. Were these projects or calls directed at higher education institutions, or were they rather on secondary level, which often happens with STEAM? Or on which level, and which mix did they foresee, like in terms of NGOs, industries, public bodies, schools? Because obviously I was not even aware of that. Just the same that you were not aware of us, we were not aware of you. So this is also a communication exercise. But just to clarify this, to see how the policies are basically prioritizing.
Mm-hmm. That's a pity that you didn't know about those projects. Of course, the projects were all directed towards the higher education institutions, but of course, in case of universities, the university applied. Although we wanted to stimulate that every member of the university, every faculty would participate. So one of the criteria was that each faculty at a certain university.
Sorry, we cannot hear you suddenly. Darinka, we cannot hear you.
Sorry, what about now?
Now you're back, yes.
Yeah, I don't know which part you didn't hear, but as I said, all the projects were directed towards higher education sector, and the universities could apply. But we stimulated an even participation of all the disciplines within the university by the criterion that every member of the university, every faculty, could get up to 10 such projects. And we succeeded, and really all the faculties in different Slovenian universities participated, and with the criterion that students should come from different faculties within a university, we again emphasize this interdisciplinary nature of the projects. and the faculties really started to cooperate. First, in the first group of projects, they cooperated among themselves and with different business companies. In the second group of projects, where we stimulated projects with local communities, with municipalities, with NGOs in the local community, and so on, and not just business companies, business sector, we succeeded also to get a lot of, maybe even more of STEM projects than in the first group. And we are hoping now that these projects are already well established. Several thousands of students already participated in these projects. We are hoping that we can successfully continue with them in the next programming period.
Thank you. Perhaps if you have some official, even if Slovenian language, but better so perhaps English language, results, evidence, or whatever reflections, whatever you might share with us in the chat or in the minutes, please, that would be most interesting. Same goes for everyone else. Some things we are sharing out into the social media as well. We are waiting for the big public to maybe pose a question or a comment already now. We have slowly gotten rid of our positions. I can regret that Robert Manchin is gone. Basically, he was with us, the Culture Action Europe president and MAST partner that is now not with us. He was claiming some connectivity problems, and I can see he's gone unless someone will share his position. So is Clement Shirok, our external quality assurance advisor. He says he needs to leave, but it's very interesting to listen in. Clement will be a very important factor when we will reflect the way we were learning, the way we also built this module that we believe is future bearing. And if you want to know the details, I have shared out the MAST showcase posters. So there's a link. I'm sharing it again now in the chat line. There's a link to, there's a link to 9 posters that you can scroll down. It doesn't want to catch, but you can see the poster showcase. It's also in your minutes. That I will not be now, or maybe I could even share my screen and just show you some of the things that you can yourself browse through. The master module itself, or the challenge lab, which is the essential course of it. I'm now sharing my screen. You can see I'm scrolling down these 10 stages of the challenge lab. You see there is art thinking at the most important position, if you want, preceding the design thinking stage. We are posing another novum, which is the innovation catalyst, to rehabilitate this term that has been floating around for 8 years now, but the innovation catalyst that can navigate the artistic, the humanistic realms, as well as design thinking, which so far, in our opinion, or in the findings of the MAST research, was too far dominating the STEM or the STEAM and the entire innovation cycle at all, because the artistic thinking, the artistic positions, the methods and tools were not qualified in these processes. And this is our suggestion and our take on how to do that, how to basically reframe the innovation design to bear fruit in terms of the artistic thinking and practice contributing. Importantly, you can see the Unicult at MAST process. This is exemplified by several interesting lectures, inputs, and so on. We are also having an Unicult tonight, well, in the afternoon at 5, from 5 to 7. Some very interesting lectures by some leading thinkers in the realm of art, science, technology. Check out the program of today's Unicult lectures in the afternoon. You can see there were some experimental hackathons that we did in Stockholm, that we did in Rijeka. In Rijeka, we also discussed professors, students, NGOs, practitioners shoulder to shoulder to find what would be the way to design this curriculum or the master study module, and even more so, how to appropriately follow up or support the students or the alumni careers. We have heard, I think, by Peter, and it came up with Christoph and with Sanya as well, that these post careers, the tough existential positions, and that the young artists or the artists in general are facing, or the cultural production now is facing, should be somewhat better supported and better integrated into the otherwise career support mechanisms at universities, as well as on the other side in the employment policies, other social policies. This is also where we were moving along. You can see some really famous faces like Julaj and Jan Fabre, and we're having Lev Manovic tonight and tomorrow with us. So we are trying to think along and think with and get consulted by the hopefully the greatest minds of today in the realm, not only of the arts, but well, arts and humanities, or the art, science, technology realm in widest sense. Now I will stop my screen sharing. There is only one more item, but I will probably not want to dominate this anymore. There is an important showcase, which is a 9-minute video, which we might look at in the end. It's the video showcase. It's a fly-through video with comments of me and my colleague at the MAST project, showing the exhibition taking place at the Kersnikova Institute in Ljubljana right now. It basically opened this morning, physically even though this hybrid interfacing academy is purely online. And you can see, besides those 9 posters that kind of wrap together what was done so far in the MAST project, also 3 student works. And we think that the student prototypes, the works, are not only telling, but also critically manifestative of what was and what could be done if we get this art, science, technology teaching right. This is the positions. We spent just about an hour with the positions and the backgrounds and the inputs. And now I would again like to call your attention to the fact that we are taking minutes, or that I and my colleague are trying to catch meaningful minutes. Here you can see them rolling on this link. Perhaps for our online audience, we should be as fair as to share them out. So I'm sharing my screen where you can see the minutes, the intro material that I'm spending, and then the minutes, as you can see, your positions. We should be basically progressed to the second stage, which we could even combine with the third stage, then with modeling solutions and alliances. Just so you know that this is in front of us. I will open up the discussion right now. We will listen into the social media stream, whether there's any more suggestions, but I think we have more than enough input to discuss what potentials and concrete well, opportunities are there, will be there, could be there, or what, well, new concepts need better positioning, prioritizing, should appear in any, well, hopefully policies from which level ever, that will shape the future for the better. So I'm opening up the podium. Whoever wants to take the word, Word, I will be minuting. You can be co-minuting. You can edit your inputs. Let's perhaps try to again summarize or pinpoint those potentials and or new concepts, which will in 20 minutes hopefully lead us on to articulating solutions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Peter, if you allow, maybe a few ideas. I'm sometimes puzzled by the fact that art education, by definition or by the way it works, often ignores a certain reality. And I think the reality is often that it's very difficult for artists to find a decent living. And most of them will always struggle, but still, for example, there's still a hope that an artist might end up in a white cube gallery exhibition and maybe sell some painting or some sculpture. And I think it goes the same if we talk other disciplines like dance or musician, that the artists are often struggling finding in the way they're educated a decent living. Now, it does not mean that we have to train them all as a business people, but I feel, and I talk a lot to artists in the Brussels scene, sometimes what they're missing are competencies to think what they could do else or what they could do in parallel. So for example, of course, a digital artist could do some programming, classically a musician could do some teaching, but there might be other ways where they can still maybe get some income, even some reward, and not be in a machinery, because you should not forget, being a musician in an opera orchestra is like a machinery. So even we have artists who have a burnout, or people are hoping that they will sell at the next art trade show. So I was also wondering, and then of course we have all the technologies coming up, right, which open possibilities. And then we have the difficulty that for a big part of the public, the classical music stops maybe with Shostakovich, and the architecture stops with Bauhaus, right? And that's why I like this thing about Bauhaus, but Bauhaus is 100 years old and has been born of a completely different epoch. And we are referring to a thing like we're referring to classical music, like the birthday of Beethoven. So I was wondering what you and the team were developing also during MAST, saying, what can we do for making artists more adaptable to a complex environment where they can still find happiness, and also how could we even work together with the public. There was the idea about this co-creation and the transversality, that also the public gets, I wouldn't say educated, but gets more connected to contemporary art expression, which is maybe improvised music, atonal music, using computer-based music, having different kind of artworks, mixing analog and digital art and so on. So, because I feel it's not only the artists, it's also the public who maybe still is a bit stuck in the last century.
Thank you. Yes, I would much agree. Although just a short response, MAST, of course, was looking for solutions. Although we were trying to keep away from, trying to look for social security for artists, but rather we found that there is a lot of need for the artistic, if I may say so, service to society. But then, how to support this? Of course, not all artists would agree a priori to this. Not all are fit for that, and we are not saving the artistic scene within, the view of the big bad neoliberal capitalism, but we are rather trying to, from within, transform for the better this very same system, and probably not only bring a little bit of art in it, but claim that, well, the artistic thinking and the artistic practice is the essential, is the key maybe to making innovation more, well, equitable, social, and even economically bearing. And now you can listen all across that, it's not the money we're doing this for, it's not profit anymore, it's just social benefits and so on. And we have to survive as society. And this is what the artistic thinking and the artistic intuition, the emotional cum intellectual capacities, methodologies, and algorithms, if I may say metaphorically, of the artistic practice have been doing ever since. Anyone else?
I raised my electronic hand. Now I'm going to lower it down. Thanks a lot, Peter, for your input on Bauhaus and on inclusivity of arts in the world, in the living. As a matter of fact, I'm working on different fields, and one of these are not only formulas, but real actions behind on ethical design, for example, or universal design. This is what I mentioned when I said that I was in projects on inclusivity and something for the community on one side, and on the other side, that there still is an aesthetic, artistic modality of the thing, of the object, of whatever it is. But we are not, Bauhaus, it was 100 years ago. So in between, we had so many other things. We had cybernetics, AI, different stages of AI, haptics, and so many other prosthetic things that we might upgrade even the notion of, if the Bauhaus is the metaphor of the progress, then we can upgrade this metaphor into something more. And of course, we are all into that. When I teach and when I start with Bauhaus, students are like, oh no, history. It's like history. For them, it's something historical, belongs to other, like Middle Ages. Let's do something on cathedrals, or the pyramids. This is not to say that I lack respect on what has happened 100 years ago. It's in line with what students need now. And quite recently, I don't know if you saw the documentary, the Social Dilemma, Netflix, that when you had all these CEOs, Twitter, Google, Pinterest, whatsoever, like burnt out with what they did. And those are creators as well. Those are creatives, people. So, and arts is in really hand in hand with what Silicon Valley did. I mean, why we do like, whenever I buy a new Apple, whatever, first thing that I look at is the packaging, and it's a piece of art. Practical, but it's still a piece of art. So our intention, generally speaking, can be to make every piece or every object that we have in our environment in same with the same intention that the guy from Apple had in mind in designing, and not now only practical industrial design, but designing, conceptualizing, visualizing the world and objects. And this is art. This is where we are. And this is our impact on what we are doing. And not only practical, but really, and now I go back in history of ideas on the level of aesthetics of our living. So thanks, Peter, for bringing in these topics.
Thank you, Sonia, for expanding this and into the realm definitely of speculative, participatory, community-aware, and so on design, critical design, which is very important, which is basically overlapping with the artistic practices we do, and art and design is not binary in these terms. Unless we have an immediate response to Sonia's input, we do have a question from Facebook, which is for Peter Fries. But now, any immediate responses to Sonia? If not so, then at Peter Fries, is the EU planning to propose a harmonized mechanism on the status and working conditions of artists and cultural and creative professionals? Unquote.
Okay. I think, of course, first of all, the cultural responsibility is with the member states. What I can say is that we are now discussing the next round of funding mechanisms, support mechanisms, and we have two big programs. One is called Horizon Europe, and the other is called Creative Europe. And what I can see from the budget discussion is that a lot of money will be injected in the Creative Europe program. And typically in the Creative Europe program, we finance projects, consortia coming up. So it's a bottom-up initiative that people would propose no interesting ideas. And this is the way I think from Europe we would like to support that. Plus, of course, that our commissioner responsible for education and culture is also responsible for research. So I think there's an interesting, and she has been our commissioner before, and she knows very well about STARTS initiative. So I think indirectly there will be some sort of, I would call it a soft framework and a strong support for cultural matters.
Thank you, Peter. But maybe to you and to everyone, isn't there a little trap hidden in these European projects? Even if we can just say hello and hallelujah to to Creative Europe getting more funds, these projects are financed well. Our MAST was as well 80-20. Most of them are 60-40 finance. There is quite some problems and lack of co-funding opportunities. This is at the ministries because in Slovenia, we do get some support, but they're not completely supported. And let's not forget that the question was with the status and the working condition of artists, which through these projects are being led into very often, or still increasingly, they say, especially now in COVID situations, to work in precarious ways and under a lot of pressure without social security. And the MAST project did promise to reflect and to educationally curricularize technological solutions or technology and science for the better of the society. Now, how do we get out of this paradox? That society would, well, need and want the artistic sector, to help to support its overall progress or the innovation, even in the economical, in the industrial sector. But on the other side, we have all of these social needs and social realities, which are becoming probably even sharper at present.
Well, maybe I have one thing. It's maybe about what was said before about artists, how to artists living, And there is one thing that maybe it's not mentioned quite often, and it's the thing that today we're still too much thinking about art as only as an art market. But at the same time, we also have, let's say, art galleries or art institutions, which are basically art producers. I think these art producers are really crucial to me if we want to join, let's say, topics from science, technology, engineering, math, and so on. And because they can be like these junction points in between education and society, like growing up their own public, disseminating this. Let's say projects that are being developed there, because I also think that here in Slovenia we have quite some institutions that are really basically art producers, and maybe there should be this distinction in between just art gallery or art producer, maybe even I don't know, art distributor. So on. So this kind of distinction in between can be something that is, I don't know, missing at this point, or just being recognized as such.
Should we then, Sasha and everyone, maybe even Christoph, should we then be teaching the students into becoming individual, CV entrepreneurs? Should we get them and support them in getting into smaller groups, building their little NGOs? Becoming producers and being empowered to well, to apply for these Creative Europe projects, which basically happens. And by the way, you know, Slovenia is one of the best scoring because we have a quite a well-developed, at least intermedia, media arts and so on scene. But of course, it's mostly all condensed in Ljubljana. Now we're doing some important cohesion fund supported actions in networking this out onto the national and trans-regional, transnational level. Still, I think this is, again, I think this is quite a matter of policies. Christoph, I don't know, maybe from the Brussels perspective, and then maybe Darinka from the ministry perspective, you know, from the national, from the supranational perspectives. What are the actual, well, potentials, or which are maybe the novel, the new concepts, or maybe the old, but refreshed, redefined concepts that can bring us onward?
Well, first, Peter, I was thinking about something you mentioned, and that is indeed a problem, is the co-financing of European programs, the rates also. So, for example, within STARTS, you always need to convince companies to participate in the project, which is not easy. And as the artist Memo Acton said, we have to educate the industrialists of tomorrow. They need a more holistic perspective on life. Together, when you are a CEO today, you're a hero when you maximize profit. Well, this is a narrative that is not made for a world anymore. So I think the first thing we should do is to sensitize and educate CEOs, be it of multinationals or of SMEs, and that's a big difference. We need to show them best practices, and there are already many of those practices within STARTS. I also think that the big industry, and this is also, somebody referred to the social dilemma, Silicon Valley is in a big tragedy. They understand that their startup attitudes, where they live in a bubble far away from the governments, that it doesn't work anymore. They get in really serious trouble. So they will need the government. So it's not only sensitizing the CEOs, but I think we have to think about taxes. Many companies are based on taxes and support from the government. And I think from within the governments, there should be an alternative and more strict policy towards companies. Tax avoidance, it's something incredible. If we don't dare to talk about this, we will never change anything anymore. So within the industry, it has to change, and there should be more generosity towards all the cultural world and the educational world. And multinationals, they can do it because their boards, they are so separate from the communities where the companies are being based. And if this doesn't change, I think it will be very difficult. On the other hand, I also think that the arts world should change, and the arts world in general, not only the artists, but also, because when I hear in lots of cultural debates speaking about industry, mostly it's industry bashing. Now, I don't think this is a good way to do it. There should also some sort of objective view towards the industry. We need industries. And I think artists should also, and the cultural world in general, have another attitude and another approach towards the industry, because we're not only talking about multinationals as big car industry or the oil industry. In our European ecosystem, there are many small enterprise companies that do a very good job. And the people, the young leaders that are on board of those companies, they are really positive thinking and want to change, even want to work with artists. So I think from both sides, government, industry, artists, we need to change our way of thinking today.
Thank you for these encouraging words. And we have an industry policy workshop at the other end of MAST program, which will be slightly different from this one, but this is taking very valuable input. We don't have like traditional industry representatives, but we should hear their voice. And I can testify that here on the ground, on local and regional level, we do have companies that are gradually opening up their ears. This is not multinationals. This is smaller, SMEs, startups who went through this NGO, existence compromising risk moments, and they also emphatically, in a way, feel with artists much sooner. But then again, you know, they are ruthless. You know, they want to see value for money. They want to know what they're investing in, what they're going in, what this artist or the artistic process could do to their business model, and so on. Darinka, I was kind of challenging you as well. Are you still with us?
Yes, thank you. Maybe.
I know that you, sorry, Darinka, I know that you can hardly speak on behalf of the Ministry of the Economy and then the other ministries. And we know there's this trans-sectoral block, you know, that the ministries are not really collaborating. Even if the chambers of commerce have been opening, we have the chambers of commerce as important partners in some cohesion and infrastructural projects right now that deal directly with art and business. However, how do you see, but then again, you know, the educational ministry or the educational field is somewhat in silo, I have the feeling, you know, and then the economy, the Ministry of Economy or whoever does the policies and the chambers of commerce, they do their own thing and they develop different frequencies, different velocities, and these things just don't match, don't meet, or do they, and we don't know. But rather a question to you is what is doable from the educational perspective, or how would you envision maybe this better collaboration with centers?
Well, speaking from the educational point of view, I must say that we are trying, with all these measures, I would say, in recent years, we are trying to bring people together, to start first talk to each other, then understand each other, and then collaborate. This is very important. It seems easy, but it's not. It proved very difficult. When we started to introduce projects in different areas, in the area of science or higher education, we saw that people needed first quite substantial time to start to understand each other. When for instance, our colleagues from the Science Directorate started to work on the projects of smart specialization, they observed problems between research and industry people starting to even understand each other before they started to collaborate. Now this is becoming an everyday practice. In the area of higher education, we are trying to bring together scientists and academics from higher education institutions and trying to work more intensively together. And then to get both of them together with the industry, with the local community. At the European level, all this is also can be observed in the new strategies in different areas. Preparing now for the presidency of the EU Council, we are working together with Germany and Portugal as a trio, presidency trio, and we emphasize very much linking higher education and research together. And we have a huge support of the new Commission, European Commission, now having these areas being in the same in the responsibility of the same Directorate General really helps. And we are hoping to move things and speed things up in the period of the trio presidencies. We are trying also to harmonize a bit different European instruments that give support in this area, like Horizon and Erasmus+, new programs in this area. And we are seeing some concrete steps in this direction already. We are in the area of education and higher education policy at the European level. We are looking for a new concept of European university and developing new instruments to support this, like the networks of alliances of European universities that should test some concepts.
Immediately to jump onto the European universities, how would you see them in concrete terms supporting this art, science, technology mix?
Yeah, we are, for the first time, maybe now we are from the area of science and higher education policy co-financing such a concept of European university alliances. Before they had to apply for different instruments. in both areas. Now we are hoping that for the first time we will have joint co-funding mechanisms. This is quite important.
What would be then this harmonizing of the Horizon and the Erasmus? These are two massive mechanisms. How would you see them harmonized? Because knowing one and the other, I think they still, until now, they acted quite in silo and they were not aware of each other's priorities, let alone the actual projects, the outputs and the impacts.
But now as a trio, as a presidency trio, we are working together with the European Commission, and we already see some concrete steps in that sense. And we already see how the Horizon can support these European universities. And this is for the first time that they will not be supported just from the Erasmus program. So there is progress made, and it will, after we will evaluate the pilot phase of the European universities, we envisage further steps in that respect. But then there are other areas. Don't forget the digitalization agenda of the European Commission, where there is a lot of opportunities for projects like yours and solving the challenges that you refer to today.
Thanks. Yeah, Christoph raised his hand on camera. Before I go there, yes, we definitely will be looking for further support because MAST has generated a lot of momentum and ideas and alliances. By the way, we instigated a meetup together with Sensorium Festival Bratislava, a meetup on this future possible approaches that obviously lean on Horizon and Creative Europe and Erasmus mechanisms. There was a massive response. We had a beautiful workshop with 30 people. We came up with two big and strong ideas, like, proto-project ideas, two potential big consortia, and we are meeting again on Friday to consolidate this. So such projects, as you can see, bear this, but we do need, of course, not only knowledge about, but also, the coming, the approach from the other side, and this is what we are hopefully doing right now too. Christoph, please.
It's just a small question for Darinka, in fact. Thank you for the explications. I was just wondering, within the context of the Slovenian presidency, there are talks also with Portugal and Germany to find out or to create a plan on the long-term sustainable, also towards the whole problematics we are discussing here today. And I was wondering, within the Slovenian presidency, together with Peter, how can we organize something in Brussels that can sensitize many different stakeholders at the different European institutions to discuss what we are doing here today? I don't know if there are any plans from within Slovenia for the presidency in Brussels.
I'm not sure I know what you mean with your proposal. You would like to propose a special event in Brussels dealing with the topic that we are discussing today?
Yes, the different ministries of Slovenia, they are, in my opinion, collaborating on a cultural, educational and economic project in Brussels during the presidency. And I think that art, science, technology and these new collaborations also within the context of START might be a crucial element in the proposals that the Slovenian presidency will realize in Brussels.
I must say that any such proposal would be most welcomed, and it's right. It would be timely now to put such proposals forward, because we are still, of course, also because of the post-COVID situation, we are still, our agenda is ongoing, and we have to adopt and change things, so we have not finished the program to every detail of every event that will be going on during our presidency. So it's still time to discuss possible events, issues to be discussed in different formats. So most welcomed if you have any proposal to send it to us.
Sounds highly relevant. I'm pushing the envelope over to Peter. Maybe Do you think the 3 Connect section, the European Commission could support or collaborate in something like this? And of course, we have Culture Action Europe that is facilitating all of this, that will for sure be happy to.
Sure. I just want to support Christoph's idea that in the past, quite often the presidencies actually made a distinction, because some presidencies are less sensitive to that kind of collaboration or topic, right? And there was, I think, an interesting event in Latvia where conclusions were drawn which help afterwards to shape programs. I think I would be very happy if we could work on that kind of workshop where we try, I think, at the same time bring the subject forward, but also reflect to a post-COVID situation we don't know today exactly. And as I said, this is an event I think can be very beneficial also for the presidency, because it could also in Slovenia maybe facilitate things. And as a presidency event, it has a certain visibility, which then can be used, I think, on all directions. And it also, of course, for the artists, right? And normally for these events, we get a high-level participation, so we can at least get the commissioners on this, and I guess Maria Gabriel would be happy, and maybe our commissioner as well. I just wanted to add that recently we have been discussing starts also a little bit more in the scope of media and creative industries. Because what we consume today, if you start from Netflix, is media as a product, and it's actually it's an industry. But it's a full range of where, and it was said before, when it comes to social media, where artistic thinking and practice could enter in the media production and creation. And this, of course, could then again link back to education.
Okay, thanks. This is a. We have jumped over to point 3 because this is conclusions, this is concrete suggestions. So we're already on our last point. And in the last realm, I could see the hand raised by Sanya.
Yes, I just wanted to, again, to reflect what you've said about media and creative industries. When I worked on the project and did the desk research 2 years ago, started working on creative and cultural industries. One of the big issues was, what about media? Where does the media belong as a field, as activity, as a formal, is it just a communication? Which kind of communication? Do we do the hermeneutics of communication and media, et cetera, et cetera? So it's really at stake, does media go along with the creative industries, whatever we think about creative industries, or define them, or not? Is it something, even an obstacle to the development or free development of creative industries or creativity as such? Because it has that specific AI or algorithm or whatsoever impact where you can direct things. And in arts, or whatever I think is arts are, the first thing is liberty. You don't know where you're going. You don't know where you're heading, but you're free to expand your creativity. And with algorithm or media or social media, well, that's not the same. You are directed. You're pretty much directed, manipulated. That's what, as Christoph said, those guys in Silicon Valley are now experiencing. With AI and with algorithm, we have part of creativity in open sourcing, in whatever it is, Linux practices. But what about these other practices, media practices? So it's a backlash. It's not media and creative industries. It's kind of, what is it? Like two giants. struggling.
In response to this, we have moved into the concrete solutions, suggestions part, and there's a comment by Yernek himself, who was so far listening in, trying to arrange the minutes. Still, Yernek, please, we're listening in.
For me, this question about where media belong is quite weird, because media has been changing for the past, I don't know, 200 years, quite a lot, and quite fundamentally as well. But it's also the way we consume media that has changed a lot. So maybe to rephrase these questions, I would ask, where does drawing belong? I consider media just a tool, like any other tool that any creative person can use, or non-creative in that sense.
Thank you for the comment. This was a very basic one. It's good to get always back to basics and back to the basic concepts, redefining them. Still, I'm kind of trying to pragmatically push this workshop at the end towards any new ideas. Like this idea of the Slovenian presidency-based event is a very, almost too concrete, very realpolitik concrete suggestion. Are there any things that you would like to see in either national or international, well, legislation, policies, priorities that you did not see or hear today yet, when the ministries and also by the European Union, we are being rest assured that, you know, everything is there, everything will be in the horizon, in the creative Europe. They know what's on our minds, they know what's in the future. Everyone has a crystal ball. Of course, we're quite clueless in the face of the COVID and the post-COVID and everything, and doing our best. But is there any concrete policy recommendation, either on national, not only Slovenian, but any national level or international level, that we could basically take home here or underline? Yeah, Christoph.
I think that, as Peter Vries mentioned, the regional start centers is a good opportunity to bring the starts thinking to the regions, in different regions in Europe, because this transversal way of working in the Commission, it's already in place. You have a vice minister who works together with different commissioners, and together they make plans that allow then different stakeholders in Europe to work together from many different fields. I think this is a philosophy that has to trickle down to the regions in Europe.
Always briefly, starts there. Has it ripened? Has it has it borne the fruit that it was supposed to, and that is future bearing, if I may play with words, so that it can be disseminated right down, trickled right down to regional or local level? Or then obviously, which transformations does it need to undergo? Of course, bumping into local mindsets, cultural standards, criteria, national policies on its way.
I think if I it's maybe more practical, but together with many starts partners, we have been thinking about new methodologies of connecting artists and scientists and industrialists. When you look at the old models, it were mostly artists who went to the R&D of companies or labs or research institutions, and then together they created an artwork. So there was this very narrow connection, one artist going to one company, working together with the R&D. And slowly, also with the help of Alexander Mankowski, who's the futurologist of Daimler-Benz, and a couple of other CEOs, we have been creating a different system. And it's a system of bubbles also. So you bring together expert groups in companies, in wherever you bring together, so it can be in a cultural institution, but also in a company, but expert groups that consist of many different people. This can be philosophers, industrialists, artists. So you don't play one-to-one, but you bring together the expert groups where they define the local challenges. So how can you, with using the new technologies, give an answer to the local problems? And how can you involve also the communities and the citizens into this thinking? And it's within these expert groups that you get different models of people that start to collaborate on common projects. And I think this is a whole new methodology that is now being developed in different toolboxes for the STARTS community and the STARTS ecosystem that might be really inspiring to the regional players.
Christophe, when you say the bubbles, either they be in the cultural institutions or in the companies, is it really the, you know, the traditional institutional settings, or do we need new spaces where they're not that new anymore? But for instance, here in Nova Gorica, the 7th biggest town of the small Slovenia on the border with Italy, we are just setting up the first ever hub, which is a public multi-stakeholder hub, which is kind of a free and independent space where this could happen in a free libertarian, if I may use Sanya's concept, way. Because if it's inside a company, we have hubs like this as well, and some of them function perfectly. They are dominated by their business models, company culture. Someone holds the key. And so it is when it happens in a library or in a, you know, any other institution, or in a, you know, municipality cellar. Any other institution might hold their own key. So do we still need, and what kind of these free hybrid spaces, I would say, that allow such true level playing field collaboration, co-creation?
I completely agree. It's the right question you asked, Peter. It's a very intelligent question. I don't have an immediate answer, but that we need spaces where there are not really the traditional hierarchies between the industrialists, between curators and museum directors, but more open spaces where you can really discuss and collaborate. I think this is really a necessity. And to get outside the institutions to make this happen, this could be a fantastic way to go for STARTS also.
Maybe I have one thing on this topic. I have some experience of interdisciplinary, let's say, projects between Academy of Fine Arts and, let's say, Faculty of Computers and Engineering. And we do these joint classes together. And in previous years, it was really difficult. I mean, like getting students together physically, shifting, arranging meetings and so on, exchanging I don't know, notes and so on, thoughts. But this is just one, what happened with this COVID situation when we all started Zooming, you know, it's the immediate response from the students was, this is great, this is much better. All the meetings just became so much easier in a way. You know, I mean, I agree with it. It's not personal, there's no smell and so on. But at the same time, these joint classes, this is, I think it's really an opportunity. Something happened to us, and maybe it's because of the younger generation. They're more used to this kind of collaboration, but to them it was I really have good experiences with this, you know, in last semester. So maybe this is one way of how to join these classes, how to join materials, open up SharePoints and so on. So this is something that can be really useful too. Yeah? I'm not completely moving to digital space, but in a way create something hybrid in a way, and it's also cost efficient.
In a way, I do agree, because this is why and how the internet was created. This was the visions, right? The level digital playing field. Now everyone has a camera. Most of us have a camera and a computer and an internet connection, and then we don't need to be at a very expensive corporate building where some CEO comes and steps at the front and holds a 2-hour lecture of how successful their company is before we can pitch. So yes, hopefully. And the universities have their part there as well, because the universities can and they do act just in the same traditional retro way as big, as big companies do. They are hierarchical, quite reluctant to change, to be flexible, to let in or to bring out or to let out, easily to dock into such spaces, into hubs, to get into true and deep and high frequency collaboration with the companies. I'm not mentioning parachuting little mentors, cool mentors from cool companies into the classroom, or having our placements that are safely guarded and are small bubbles and bubble away in their own outside of any context. Or then, as you said, like parachuting the artist into the companies. Even worse, it didn't pay. Even though we now see if we are on pair, if the masses are comparable in terms of what the project Resonance is with the Joint Research Center did, like more artists or strong artists, and again some kind of a level playing field. Even if you play with the top level scientists, you can, as an artist, deeply transform not only your own artistic practice and the artistic models and concepts, but also the actual research methodologies, the hypotheses, the data sets, and the conclusions with which they come out. Do we have any last positions? Any last?
Pina, if you allow,
yes.
I was just wondering, I think I would a little bit curious how you would transform now the MAST results into real life. And I was also wondering, there has been a network of 4 projects. This can also be a starting around Europe. This could be a starting point to push forward, because I think for you the challenge is now in the beauty that you have developed a curriculum which now you want to roll out and to bring forward. So any take on that maybe?
I took note on that, and I'm taking a turn in saying that, well, as you can see, together with you and Ralph Duman, so I have also addressed the other module project leaders, but they did not respond. I don't know why. We promised, we pledged the legends, we pledged to stay connected, to stay together, to invite each other, at least in the final parts. Well, COVID blocked us from visiting Milan and Ireland and so on, which we could probably, but I must say there was not enough information flow through. We were reaching out with our disseminations, never anything came back, and we didn't hear about any of the 3 other projects. We were disseminating to them, I can rest assured, and I'm not sure how this was then. Probably there is some improvement potential here if such projects are being experimentally then financed, supported, and coordinated. We should be probably not only forced in coming together like we were at the beginning. This was a fantastic, you were there and we were all there, but of course we were at the beginning. We were starting to explore this new and unknown field and land. But now, after 2 years, I think everyone has, and we do have definitely a lot to share and a lot to think of in sustainability terms. We have several suggestions. As you could see, we have a whole challenge lab, a couple of courses, a new profile that we want to put forward. This MAST results are living onward in these other 2 projects, DIVA, the Art Business Ecosystems. It's a 3.5 million sponsored, supported interlink between Slovenia and Italy. Obviously, here we are on the border, so it's highly relevant. Also, taking part is Kersnikova Institute here. Then there is the CONS platform, the Pan-Slovenian platform of investigative art stakeholders. So it has to live on the methodologies, the basic thinking, the art thinking within the innovation cycle. The innovation catalyst refreshed, revamped concept is at the core of both of the other two projects that I mentioned, and it's being inserted furthermore. So we're trying to formulate it well, like a smart virus, like a very positive COVID-18 to 20. So COVID-18 in terms of the MAST project having started in the year 18 and finishing now in 20, in 2 months, seeking how to, how to transcribe, but critically transcribe this DNA, how to take hold of, other, curricula, stakeholders, business models, and obviously policies, which is what we were here for and what we are here, hopefully still. We have only 7 minutes left. We had a couple of links shared here, Studiotopia EU by Christophe. Any other urgent links or messages into the ether? No, then I will leave us with this. Please engage with the minutes. I will send around again the collaborative shared document to consolidate the minutes, maybe enrich your inputs that I was frantically kind of jotting down, and Jerne was, with some links, some more concrete and more exact formulations. Please bear with us. And I will use this final 7 minutes. Well, we have a 9-minute showcase video which premiered this morning, showing physically at Kersnikova Institute how we set up 3 student projects and 9 posters, of which we could not you could not see everything, and it might make more sense to understand what we did right now. So I will leave us with this video in the flow, and until we have used up all of this time, I hope that the streaming time can go a little bit over, because it's 9 minutes and now we are 6 minutes to noon sharp. So I will just let this video roll and all of us to reflect upon what we did and what we could do. Thank you very much for your participation, each and every one of you. We will be collaborating and in touch on different levels and frequencies. And yes, the headquarters studio says, sure, no problem. So we will be streaming until 5 minutes past 12. Whoever must go, but also the internet is watching and listening in through YouTube and Facebook. Thank you to our faithful audiences for posing questions and comments. And the Hybrid Interfacing Academy has just started. Basically, we are running onward with a very interesting program. Check out every 2 hours there is something for the next 2 days. Tonight from 5 to 7, the Unicode lectures. Tomorrow in the morning, rounds with the students and professors. And in the afternoon, for sure, don't miss the MAST concluding symposium. Thank you very much. If there is nothing else, I do not see any hands. Please take a look, listen into the now shared, and this will be my off and away and goodbye moment. Here you can see our rich Vimeo channel with a lot of student videos. There was a big MAST symposium last year here at the Pixel Point Festival with all of the symposium contributions neatly recorded. There is more than 15 of them. There is a MAST podcast. There is a PodMAST with 22 podcast interviews with interesting thinkers, practitioners, and so on the menu. Stay tuned, mastmodule.eu. Follow the Hybrid Interfacing Academy, but this now is basically the premiere, the live premiere of the MAST showcase, almost live and direct from Kersnikova Institute, Ljubljana. Stay tuned.
I would like to welcome you to Kersnikova Institute for Culture, Art and Education. We are one of the 5 partners within the MAST project, and we are here to kind of showcase the deliverables and products and visuals that have been created throughout the MAST project at our showcase exhibition.
Humans tend to produce technology think in scientific terms and create artistically in order to progress. So did the MAST module project, developing a master module in art, science and technology. This is why it's called MAST. Represented in this exhibition are 3 works of students. The solution for condensing humidity out of, humid air into water by salvaging computer hardware parts and, of course, custom milling a little sharp parts. This is by Micha Godec, a student of the School of Arts of the University of Nova Gorica.
The art piece itself, or the piece itself, is also not only collecting water, but it's also purifying it, which will be one of the harshest challenges that we will have to face in the next decades.
The project of Helene Tümmel has produced interesting prototypes of cups that could be made of sand.
What we did at PIF Camp is to go to the Socha River. The venue was placed very near the Triglav National Park with this beautiful nature where we collected sand and made various variations of the cups that will break as soon as you grab them. So this piece is a very important take when we are thinking about the future that we would like to create and the production systems that we would like to create, because the constant production, constant reproduction does not benefit us as users. It only benefits the ones that are producing it.
Both Helene Tümmel's and Micha Godec's prototypes came about in the Future of Work workshop on the island of Madeira, Portugal. At the School of Arts of University of Nova Gorica, we held 2 workshops where students on the one hand experienced experimental work with biotechnology, equipment and methodologies, ways of thinking that alter the way we see science through artistic thinking, and on the other hand seeks to apply new technologies in different ways, in such ways that not only progress innovation, innovative solutions, but also pose questions that have not been posed before. A little bit further in the showcase, we can see the Uniquote program, which has brought about several globally relevant names, not only to lecture to the students, but to work with them shoulder to shoulder in developing possible future scenarios for a better society and, of course, consolidating the curriculum. In the Graz, Austria, the technical university-based series of workshops, the students worked with algorithms and sonification models to develop ways how to transform space to a better, more accessible, more equitable, more positive environment. And of course, the technology, not only software programming and algorithms, but also hardware solutions, including architecture, played a very important role in this series of workshops that you can see in the 3 quite telling posters. These workshops have also brought about a novel mapping of such practices, not only on European but on global level, that was done by the students and was mentored by art science practitioners. The workshops also brought about the testing of this curriculum in practice, and the curriculum we developed, the master module, rests on the presumption that students should go through the entire innovation process cycle, which is simplified or stratified in 10 stages. One essential stage of which is art thinking, which precedes the design thinking, usually the dominant paradigm in developing innovations.
So one of the aims of the MAST module is to create a certain curriculum that would facilitate a certain profile that we would like to develop. And this profile is called an innovation catalyst. An innovation catalyst is a person who deeply understands the processes that are going on within a so-called art thinking methodology, and then can combine it with the previous iterations of design thinking and the innovation processes as we know them today, and we will know them in the future. So what an innovation catalyst will do is to try to set up an innovation process, an innovation cycle within a so-called challenge lab. This is a situation room of some sorts where the innovation catalyst will provide a setting within which an interdisciplinary group of experts, scientists, artists, thinkers will try to address a variety of burning problems for the humanity and industry, society, and come to ethical solutions through 10 steps that are characteristic for and are embedded in a so-called art thinking process.
The master module in art, science and technology has been piloted in several different ways, in several different countries through the collaboration of NGOs, artistic practitioners, curators, scientists, engineers, and thus we believe we have created a plausible solution of how to, well, teach or study a good way of innovating on a master level by essentially including non-governmental organizations and the industry into the academic process of studying not only art, but art as combined with science and technology.